Hello, everybody. Welcome to a LinkedIn Live session with Gen City Labs. I'm Mike Shaman, CEO of GCL. Appreciate you guys joining us today. With me, as always, is Eric Arvar, Head of Strategic Partnerships. And also joining us today, and Lisa, I'm really glad you didn't jump in to take over hosting duties because I know you're so used to it.
Not today.
I was gonna go with like the pregnant pause to see if you were gonna like just reflexively jump in and begin. But Lisa Payton, who is deeply steeped, I would say mired, but let's say steeped in the world of virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, and who hosts her own monthly
Yes.
pub crawl, which is amazing, which she will tell us about. But Lisa, tell us about your background and all of the bona fides.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for having me on. And I will also say that I love that you all, both of you, are early pub crawl supporters. I mean, I think you guys go back to some of the very, very first ones. We've been doing the pub crawl now for over a year. I can't believe it's been the year has gone by so quickly.
Yeah.
We're going on 2 years now. And we met Shaman through Billy Goldman, I believe.
Yeah.
And so I need to give her, today is her birthday. So big shout out to my bestie, Billy Goldman. Happy birthday, Billy. Love you so much. And I hope you have an amazing day and amazing month. So there's that. But yeah, super grateful. She came to me and she just knew that we had to chat based upon the innovative work that you were doing at that point. I think it was like the NFT space, the XR space with brands. And for me, I've been working with using emerging technology to connect to audiences for almost 20 years. It's really been the backbone of my entire career. Super early adopter of platforms like Second Life back when it first launched in the early 2000s. Early adopter of social media to build branded connections with audiences. Social media, rode the social media train for a good decade, running my own agency, working with brands like Hewlett-Packard and the Smithsonian, Alaska Airlines. And then I got swallowed up over at Intel and worked there as their global social media strategist for 5 years. I actually met Billy before Intel, but she just happened to be working at Intel, and then we flourished together. The two of us became troublemakers in the world of doing cool B2B stuff. And loved that job. It was an amazing job. But at the same time, I was also teaching at Portland State. They had a digital marketing professional program. I taught in that program for 7 years and caught the teaching bug and decided that was my purpose. My raison d'etre was to teach. So I am now a full-time instructor at the University of Oregon, where I teach emerging technologies to up-and-coming Stratcom majors here, seniors mostly, in the great SOJC, School of Journalism and Communications. And in fact, right at 2:00 today, I jump into my XR class. It launched this term. I teach my XR class once a year, and it's launching, and it's today, and I'm going to be getting them all smart on all the things. So just that to say that I do need to wrap up a little before 2, so I can jump online to do that.
No
but
worries.
That's me in a nutshell. So thank you for
That is awesome. No, that's great. And we for purposes of this LinkedIn Live, we broadcast this on X. We'll broadcast it on YouTube as well. So for those of you guys that are joining us live, we appreciate you all. For those of us watching after the fact, Lisa is amazing and an exceptional resource and fountain of knowledge in all things XR. So tell me a little bit about the class that you're teaching, just because I think that there are a lot of analogs between the curriculum that you've pulled together for your students and what brands might need to learn. Because a lot of the brands that we work with have a sense of, they are aware of virtual reality, they're aware of augmented reality apps, they see some brands experimenting with brand engagement. What are some of the core principles and what are some of the key notes that you're hitting for your class that also apply to the brand world and the agency and brand folks that are watching now?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that question. And it's so funny because in a way, as I was setting up myself up and kind of preparing for today and my time with you, I was like, this is actually kind of a teaser for what I'm going to be teaching, at 2:00 to my students, because my perspective is very much commercial uses of XR and branded communications and strategic comm. And so that's the lens that I shine a light through for my students. It's really introducing them to how these technologies, they very well might be familiar with technologies like augmented reality and virtual reality, but they're not as familiar with how brands are using that to help their storytelling or help engage audiences. They're more maybe familiar with gaming, or some of these other Snapchat lenses, which some of those can be branded, but so not exactly deep, what I'd call deep brand experiences. And so that I want them to understand. Number one, they have to understand the technologies, and to do that, they have to jump in and do it and experience it. So I make sure that they get in and experience all the things that I'm talking about. That's a huge benefit of being in this course. We have a beautiful immersive media lab where they have access to the tools, the headsets, everything they need to experience my curated list of experiences. So really trying to find some of those best in breed branded immersive experiences they can look out through the strategic lens. And I tell them, hey, anything you're experiencing in this entire course, and really hopefully moving forward in your career, I want you to have that strategic lens. And and I try to make it as simple as I can. 3 things. What is the objective of this thing? What does it need to do? Why was it built? First thing, right? So, I always use this Gatorade Beat the Blitz. I don't know if you know it. It's one of my favorite things. It's a Gatorade 3D fancy game thing that they created, and I still use it. It's a little old, but I still use it because it's actually really good. And the students love it. I'm at UO after all with the Ducks, and so anything that's football related, they love. So it's like, so why was that thing built? Well, that thing was built because they wanted to educate football players on the hazards of dehydration, right? So that was the objective of the thing, and they wanted to do it in a new, fresh way, blah, blah, blah. Okay, second question, who's the target audience? Well, that's so important. Who is supposed to get in this thing and do the thing? And for the example, it was college football players, and primarily college football players, more so than pro players, but football players, and maybe even high school players too. And then the final thing is, what's the call to action? What do you want them to do? I love to ask the question, how do you want them to feel after they experience it? Because so much of this, right, is sensory. So, and I have the students think about that with everything they experience in the class, and try to really start thinking about it strategically. So that's really it. And then fill in the rest of it is all kind of just window dressing in a way of like just sharing with them like the different examples and explaining the technologies and going over definitions, because definitions are so important, and yada yada. I knew this term is AI. I'll say like and it's lovely. I love that I have my 20 students that are all perfect market research subjects now, because I get to listen to them, and a huge portion of them, the main thing, I was like, what's the one technology you're most interested in trying? And I had a list of all of them up there, and all of them said AI. Said, we are most interested in learning about AI. So guess what? Fantastic. I'm going to do 2 full weeks on AI, and that's what next week is going to be all about. I'm going to have them build their AI course companion, of course, because I'm hot to trot on that, right? To get them some help for navigating the course. And so this idea is very new to most of them. So I could go on and talk forever, but hopefully that answers the question. That's the course in a nutshell.
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of double click on that because, I think people really love to hear real world examples. And so regarding your course, I was just curious, how has the curriculum evolved? Because, technology is moving super, super fast. And so, you mentioned the Gatorade thing. What's like one of the early examples of XR that is maybe, dated compared to like something that you are going to be launching like AI or something this semester? So like, I want to see the sort of the timeline, right? So if you have any examples.
And the spectrum of technology against the backdrop of like technology's massive, incredible pace of development.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good question. And I could, I could do a whole I could do a whole series on that question alone. Because here the beauty of that question, Eric, is that history teaches us so much. History teaches us so fucking much, and people don't. I mean, I love history, and so if I'm struggling. Like, so if I think of some of the earliest examples I remember using, were ones. I hate to use this word, but they were a little bit more gimmicky. They were a little more novel. So I don't know.
Sure.
Do you all remember like, and there, nothing against brands that are still doing this, by the way, like to caveat that, good on you for doing something innovative, but like, scanning the good old scanning the label, the wine bottle label, back and just and having it just be, you made me scan the label and it wasn't anything sexy. It was just like a 2D, we're linked to a website, 2D website, kind of like, why do I need to know this? Right. Just so that kind of early on, bringing some interactivity, but not really valuable. The graphics probably weren't so great. They're probably kind of janky and it didn't look so good, but it was something. So, you think of Zappar, if you remember early days with Zappar. Again, nothing against Zappar because they've really developed and come a long way. But there, early days where it was really just not valuable, I would say. And so those, and this is, so now what I, can bring in now, we've evolved, to your point, to really compelling, valuable uses of the technology that are mind-blowingly wow, and valuable. And then, and that's what takes the strategy. And I know you both know that, like, it takes a lot of good thinking to come up with how are we going to provide a valuable experience, engaging experience that's going to really be valuable for our person, our consumer, and somehow provide some sort of value and the huge range for the organization. Where do these two places come together? And that's the key. That's the golden needle in the haystack moment, and it's not easy to find that. Still, even today, it's not easy to find that.
I'll say that the first augmented reality, and I'll use air quotes, augmented reality application that we had ever built was for Mini Cooper. It was an app, and this is the early days of iPhone. We're talking, gosh, this must have been 2011, maybe. And all it was placing an image of the Mini over the live video feed of your camera and taking a picture of the Mini Cooper, like next to your bowl of cereal or in a wine glass, or like, that was it, right? The only way you're capturing it, and it was basically a sticker on it, but because it's a digital image on a live video feed, you can position it appropriately. That was at the time cutting edge and really cool. And yeah, you had to download an app to get it, but Mini Cooper famously has a very passionate community, and it was awesome, right? Really, really cool, very successful. We got a crazy number of downloads and people posting on Facebook at the time, which was pretty much your outlet of social media, pictures of their Mini Cooper, in all sorts of funny places. And it was awesome. Like it was great. But Lisa, to your point, it counted on one thing, and that was the gimmick, right? Mm-hmm. Absolutely gimmicky. Like, we've got it for a moment in time, but it played with the Mini's irreverent brand, tone and everything else. It was really good. But that doesn't fly today, right? It's not just oh, look, I can see an image of something in my living room. That's not going to cut it. The why, the why, what is the meaning? What is the takeaway? What is the message, right? Why is this memorable? Why is this elevated? And as we're starting to see amazing things, right? We're starting to see real world mapping, and this is a combination of AI and augmented reality, right? You've got this like multimodal LLMs who are looking at a video feed of a building and then mapping a digital image to that building, right? You want King Kong to climb up and, start beating his chest on the top of a tower. You can do that now, and it is aware, right? So there's this fabulous confluence of technologies happening right now that provide for such a vibrant palette that we can paint with. It's exceptional, and it provides a ton of opportunities. And I think we're just scratching the surface of what we're seeing people releasing at the moment.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think, my one thing that I would say, if I step back and think about just, marketing in general, and I'm not going to take credit for this quote. I heard it in a what is it, CMI Content World. And anyway, I heard it somewhere else, and I'll figure out who to give credit to. But I thought it was really smart, and it's probably, I'm not the first one to say it. I'm sure maybe you've heard it elsewhere. But in my, our job today is to move our audience from passive to active. And if your viewer / audience is passively consuming anything, you're doing it wrong. Full stop. I truly believe that. that's just fail. If they're watching an ad, if they're watching a static video, like, there are so many ways we can bring engagement in. And I just think that it's not good. It's anyway, so the challenge is when we start thinking about, and I have a passion for B2B, it's very close to my heart, as maybe you both know. I've worked on the B2B side for years and years and years, and man, that content can be very dry and not super
Oh yeah.
interesting, and those days are over. I really truly believe, like, no matter how old you are, the tools today, the AI, all these beautiful tools, these new technology tools that we have to co-create and customize our world around us, is it making us now so that we expect that, and if we don't get that, we're tuning out? That's truly my perspective. And so, I think ask yourself that question: is my audience active or passive, and how can I make them more active? Because I feel like that's really going to bring them into the brand. It's going to light their brain up, and create that experience that is a holy grail, I think, for marketing.
Yeah, I love the enterprise focus in the B2B space in particular, which can be incredibly dry, right? And I know oftentimes we talk about consumer activations, but those are kind of low-hanging fruit, right? It's easy to create really fun, cool games for consumers for, a Gatorade or name your brand that's doing fun stuff. It's harder to get across a message when you're enterprise, right? When you're, a SaaS platform company, or whether you are Intel and a chip maker, right? You've got a session you want people to pay attention to. If they're remote, even in person, like it is very challenging to just sit and have a monologue, right? And there's 40 minutes of content, and hopefully they took a few notes and take a few quotes away. I love the idea of XR, specifically augmented reality, being a companion piece, being a second screen experience, and being additive, right? Maybe that's a 3D model in space that you're looking at. You've got an Intel chip, and they're talking about all the wonderful new features and benefits. And while that's happening, you can actually play with it on a device. I think that there are a lot of marketers out there that fear split attention span, right? I think they fear people engaging on a device because now they're going to check their email, now they're not going to be paying attention, yada yada. I think that's happening anyway. Like, I think people are going to do that regardless of what is going to happen. So if you can incentivize them to be doing something other than checking their mail, I feel like that's a win. And I think that's also probably the easiest way to create that active audience, is to get them, whether that's a survey, whether it's augmented reality experience or something, let's get them in the mix.
Yeah, I love that, and I could not agree more. We are all trained now. I mean, I have this here but that's it. We're on our phones all the time. It's like it or not, it's what it is happening. I mean, and to fear that, and to try to basically, it's like the train has left the station. You can't force somebody out of a behavior that they've already adopted, and trying to do that's going to absolutely fail and actually make them resent and hate you. So you know what? So like, give up that ghost, and instead, and it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be a $1 million experience either, to your point. Like, just simply thinking about what are the ways that I can, make my audience engage and be active. And it doesn't need to be a heavy lift. It can be something very simple, like scanning a QR code and answering some questions, or doing, whatever it is, like, just getting that active engagement piece, giving them some choice, some agency to do something. I feel like we all need that to stay engaged. Otherwise, all of our attention spans are getting shorter. So we have the attention span of goldfish. This has been proven. The research says it. They're going to tune out after 5 seconds. That's all you got to hook them.
I love when we started the conversation and you gave some examples. Both of you gave great examples of early, when the technology was a little bit earlier and sort of gimmicky, right? And then passive to active, switching your audience into that active mode. And I was reminded of something Mike Moreno, our head of our BD team, always says, that we're a creative technology studio, but in service of the user experience, in service of a narrative, of a story. And like you said, Lisa, in order to switch a user from passive to active, I think engaging them in some narrative that actually technology helps to support a cool story, that's going to be something they're going to not only engage with, but remember. And I think that's something that is, aside from the technology that you use, it's a universal paradigm. It's something that anybody that is in the business of creating meaningful experience and engagements, especially either on the B2B or B2C side, thinking of that user and thinking, you mentioned earlier about, who is this for? What motivates them? And then how can I build a story around that using all kinds of great technologies? And so I just wanted to kind of touch on that and quote our Mr. Moreno there. But moving forward a little bit, creating sort of a timeline, where do you see, based on where it's at right now, the current state of AI and XR and marketing and consumer experiences, putting your futurist hat on, what's your pie in the sky 10, 20 years from now? What is going to be the experience? How is it going to be a little bit different than it is now? Such a fun question, because it could be anything.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. No. Wow. I mean, shit. Honestly, things are moving so quickly with generative AI that I really feel a decade. I think it's going to look really different, and I feel like I have no idea what that's going to look like. Honestly, I maybe wouldn't have given that answer, a decade ago. It would have been a very maybe different answer. But things are really crazy right now. We are on a roller coaster ride, and it's going so right. I mean, one thing one thing that I'll mention is maybe both of you know. So when I think about the future, I mean, it is this beautiful combination of what we know as AI and these immersive technologies. They're just beginning to come together in a very powerful way, and that's just going to exponentially grow. And I think one of the brands and one of the experiences that I've had that I think is a really good example of, it's not there yet, but the future, is the Apple Vision Pro, the AVP. It's so they've just used AI in such a compelling way to have that customized, like it or not, that avatar experience, which I feel is one of the best looking ones out there right now. And how they've brought that in, it's so smart, and granted the price point is, maybe ridiculous right now. And you hear that, the average consumer, but well, it's not really for the average consumer yet. But I think that gives us such a beautiful crystal ball into, imagine when that thing is smaller, lighter, cheaper, right? It's going to be amazing. And even beyond, so we're eventually going to get off of these screens and we're going to come into something. I think Apple might be one of our best bets of creating something that we're actually all going to want to wear. So that's exciting. And I definitely feel like we're going to get there within 10 years. I really do.
Yeah, I agree. I think the hardware is the place that you can make a little bit of a better prediction, right? Just because, oh my goodness, the pace of technology and disruptive forces because of AI is massive, and that just makes it so hard to figure out, on a content and experiential side, where that's going to end up. I think that as you talk about the mediums through which we consume it, okay, now you can get a sense, right? Hardware takes years to build, right? Apple took a decade to build the Apple Vision Pro, right? So it's going to be a while. And I agree with you, Lisa. The Vision Pro is awesome. Honestly, the Meta Quest 3 is also a really exceptional device. The pass-through camera on there is so low latency, it's so fast that you can play. My test in the past has always been, for any pass-through camera on a headset, can I play catch, right? Because playing catch means you need to be able to respond quickly. It needs to have low latency, because if it's a few milliseconds off, you're going to miss, right? With the Meta Quest 3, it's great. The Apple Vision Pro, spectacularly fast. The question for me becomes, and by the way, you see a lot of the futurists predicting that what is now a handset is going to feel antiquated, right? It's gonna, when our kids are being born and becoming, they're gonna say, what do you mean you had a device that you had to hold in your hand, right? It's all gonna be glasses based. You're gonna have speakers embedded. You're gonna have a little camera. You're gonna have a display, and it's gonna be as light as something that's easily accessible, right?
We're all going to be Geordie LaForge. We are all literally going to be Geordie LaForge. That's what we are going to be. So embrace it, people.
Totally. No, and I can see it, right? And you know, right now, again, we think about companion pieces to content. We think about elevating experiences based off of the mobile device. But I can see a future where headsets are worn and your experience, you know, you have all these additional experiences that you can layer onto a live event. You've got your picture-in-picture, you've got your, you know, things you can play with, you've got commentary running while you're in person. There's some pretty spectacular potential applications, I think, that are not too far away.
For me, I just, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, in the interest of eating our own dog food and making sure that we are also keeping an active audience. If you guys want to drop any questions, please feel free to do so. Or we also, I know MK is in the background producing. We do have a link for Lisa and her XR pub crawl because she does this once a month with a really cool group of people. It's XR enthusiasts, it's XR curious people. I would super highly recommend you hit that QR code and check it out and sign up because it's a really good one. We attend, I've been to almost all of them. I think I missed one or two, but they're great. They're super fun conversations. They're participative and something new is always coming around the corner. And, you know, in that vein, you know, let's talk about some of the guests you've had, right? I know we've seen a lot of metaverse stuff in there. We've seen a lot of brand activation stuff in there. What sticks out to you as some of the trending pieces from when you talk about XR, you know, it's kind of fairly closely aligned with metaverse activations, right? What do you see as kind of the future of brand engagement in metaverse format in those virtual worlds, whether that's a Fortnite or a Roblox, or whether that's a Sandbox Decentraland or other something bespoke, right, that a brand creates on their own?
Oh my goodness. Yes. Well, we thank you for the shout out to the pub crawl. And you know, the premise behind it really is to get people in. That's the pub crawl element, is that we go in as a group to what could potentially be an intimidating space for some marketers, and try to provide a supportive group atmosphere to enjoy it together. I'll also say these immersive metaverse spaces, whether it be Roblox or Fortnite or whatever else, super boring if you're by yourself. It's way more fun to go into these spaces with other like-minded folks, right? That's a big part of these communities, like Second Life and all of them, is that it is community based. And all of the online gaming that we're seeing, it's community based. You know, you have friends, or your players are your friends, or people that are in your digital community, and that's a huge part of what like connecting people and building community using technology is such a huge part of what I've done with my entire life, really my entire career. So I mean, one thing that I'll say that so when you talk about this, you know, this move to digital, I do feel, and this is maybe somewhat controversial, but our online lives will just increasingly become more and more important. And some people argue that is a bad thing. A lot of judgment around that. I try to not have a lot of judgment around that because I have seen and have experienced myself the positive side of how digital can create and fill needs for myself that aren't necessarily being met in the real world around me. And I don't think that should be underestimated or, you know, judged as being less than. So that's really something I'm really strongly passionate about. And you look, you know, I'll never forget, I was, where was I? I was in a European train station, and I think it was like, I was fortunate enough to be, I was supporting an event for Intel. It may have been Barcelona or somewhere. Anyway, I was in a train station, and next to me was this Asian family. I think they maybe were Chinese, potentially family next to me with the mom and then the teenage daughter and then a little boy. And he was like 5 or something. He was on his iPad and I looked over and he was sitting next to me on the bench and he was on his little gaming thing and he was playing the game, but there was a video of his friend and they were talking to one another like a FaceTime. And I'm like, this little kid, and they were, you know, the mother and daughter were completely ignoring this 5-year-old. And he was in his own world with his little buddy, co-playing his game. And I'm like, that's it. That is where we are going. Like it or not, we're going to have these amazing online relationships. And, you know, how that's going to impact all of us, it's just going to be so interesting to see. You know, we're going to be, our online lives are going to just become really important. I mean, I think this then speaks to the trend of digital goods. We're seeing a lot of the digital goods that are being sold by Prada and Gucci, and these early brands that are getting in and selling millions of dollars. Nike's selling in digital goods, right? They're making a killing in places like Roblox. The interesting thing, I will say, and my students keep me tethered. Like, my students are lovely because they're ethical.
It's a built-in focus group. Amazing.
Right. They're like, they study ethics and things. Okay. So they keep me like, but the question that came up when we were thinking about Roblox and all the millions of dollars that are being spent, is like, we are all victims to this consumer culture where shopping to us is like dopamine. Like, we shop and we get it. We are all addicted to shopping. I mean, I like it or not, right? Our total culture here is around shopping and that hit we get from shopping. So now you combine that addiction to like a game like Roblox. Holy cow, right? And these kids are spending a ton of money, and so I don't know where I'm going with this. I think there was raised as an issue. I have one of my students who babysits, and the kids that she babysits are on Roblox all the time. They were smart enough, and it reminds me of when I was little. And this is nothing new either, because I did something very similar when I was little. It was very different. It was offline. It was but I did a similar thing. He somehow got on her thing and charged $200 worth of Robux onto her credit card, the babysitter's credit card. And she's like, so now she's like, holy cow, what the hell? Anyway, these kids are smart. They're smarter, right? And they're learning how to do consumerism and buy things online now at a much younger age. And I don't know. I'm not going to necessarily want to label it good or bad. I'll tell you that. What is it? That crazy online site where Shop Like a Billionaire, that whole thing. Oh my God. I could just, that really,
Timo or something
made me cringe, Shop Like a Billionaire. Like, this is what we're teaching kid, oh my gosh. Like, anyway, so I could go on, but I think that at the end, the lesson for brands here is, guess what? The way we consume and interact with everything from shopping to information, it's all going to change. It's all going on its head. It is turning on its head faster than we can even say. And you have to be there, even if you're not ready to target, Gen Z but you have to understand that, so that when they get old enough, you're not going to be completely lost out of the mix here. So, jump in, understand it at the very least, because it's going to impact everything that we're doing as marketers.
Yeah. And for those of you who might have joined us a little late, this is the Gen City Labs twice monthly LinkedIn live session. Our guest is Lisa Payton, professor at the University of Oregon, former recovering Intel marketer and social media, and talking all things XR and brand engagement. Sorry, Eric, you were about to dive in.
Oh, I was just going to say, Mike and I both have kids, and we're no stranger to spending stupid amounts of money on V-Bucks and Robux and things like that. But I have observed personally, this new generation, my son's 13 now, they value digital items more than physical items, and having spent so much time in a virtual space, playing along with their friends as well, little, video FaceTime going on at the same time. That's what he does. He's on spring break right now. I barely see him. But the point is that they spend so much time in this virtual space, their identity is important to them. Just like I think when I was 13, our identities were important in the physical space. So yes, tying back to sort of consumerism, tying back to the things I wear, the things that people see me in, the brands that I connect with, say something about me. And in the virtual space, there's no scarcity in a way, right? So, boy, everything he asks for is virtual. I want, anytime he has extra money, I want to buy this skin. I want to buy this weapon. I want to buy this celebration or whatever it is. And it gets me on a level. I get a little bit frustrated because I'm like, what are you going to do with it? I mean, yes, I get that you're seen as, you get some clout, some digital clout, because you're seen wearing the skin and it's rare, cool. But it's not like you can resell it, unless he always tells me, oh, I can just sell my account. That's so clumsy to me. But anyway,
I
there's
think that's where you start getting into blockchain. You start thinking about Web3. You start thinking about blockchain as a mechanism to create scarcity amongst digital goods. And then you play that into the metaverse, right? Into these spaces, whether it's a Fortnite or Roblox or some emerging platform that's going to attract an audience. And then you get into how are we consuming that, right? Is it on a laptop? Is it on a desktop? Is it on a tablet or a mobile phone? Is it in a headset, right? So you've got that this continuum of technologies that all of which are changing, right? And to Lisa's point earlier, like if you are a brand marketer, it is not just I need to create a VR experience, right? It is I need to know where my audience is going to be, right? And that could be online, that could be in real life events. I mean, we're doing some really awesome stuff this weekend for at the Final Four in Phoenix, right? And in real life events, by the way, the importance of in real life events, and Lisa, this actually loops back to what you were saying earlier. I agree that the amount of time we spend in digital worlds will only increase. I also think that they are complementary to IRL, right? It is not a substitute, but rather hey, you know what? This time I would have spent watching TV or doing something else where I couldn't be out and doing things. Now I'm going to still be connected to people. I think that's the opportunity in my mind, is like that continual connection, that opportunity to game or to chat or to otherwise, interact with others in times that, aren't typically times in which you do that. So you've got this spectrum of in real life, in a headset, online, and then you've got what are people consuming, right? Is it a digital good? Is it a physical good? Is it an experience? Is it is it an emote? And then you've got this wave of AI coming in and changing everything, all of the content that's going to bring the eyeballs, right? How do you attract people? So it is a crazy, chaotic and wild world that we are living in. And it's scary for brand marketers, for sure. There's just so much happening at the moment.
It's scary for everyone. I'll say, honestly, again, going back to some of my students, so many of them are terrified of AI, and I'm convinced the reason is the media, which unfortunately I feel does a great job at fear mongering around it, right? So so much of my job, and I'm teaching intro to AI strategies over the summer. I do believe it's the first AI Stratcom focused course at the UO probably ever. So I'm so proud of that. I can't wait to teach it. I'm super excited. But my job for that course is going to do some debunking of common myths and fears around the technology. Because you know what, if you're terrified of something, you're not going to be able to learn how to effectively use it. And my students have to learn how to effectively use it if they're going to have a career. So big job there. But whether you're a comms person or not, I think again the media has just hyped this thing out that it's going to be catastrophic. And it's certainly, that's not to say it's all positive news. I mean, for sure, I love this saying that AI it's really AI is a knowledge machine. And there's a huge difference between knowledge and wisdom, which is up to us to bring the wisdom of wisely using the knowledge that the AI machine gives us. We can use it wisely or not, but let's not blame the knowledge itself because knowledge can be a huge gift and it can be very empowering when used wisely. So I try to impart that, to help allay some of these, what I'm going to call overinflated fears that the media is out there fanning the flames of. I want to ask you, Shaman, so are you at liberty to share a little bit more about what you're doing with Final Four? And do you do a lot of kind of sports comms at all? Because I have a ton of students who are very interested in that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there isn't really an XR activation. It's more a footprint for automotive brand outside the tailgate. So, doing some work and creating interactive experience. So this is very focused on in real life. Now, with digital basketball games and things like that, there are definitely, your kind of Pop-A-Shot on steroids types of experiences. But yeah, I mean, you have an audience of young people aggregated, especially your 18 to 24s, which are right in the wheelhouse for the students. So that one, unfortunately, is not an XR activation. But we do a ton of augmented reality experiences in stadiums for teams across leagues, and that can be a photo experience where it appears as if a player is standing next to you. That's probably our most popular activation. We're doing that for the Detroit Lions and at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. We've done it for the Golden State Warriors, a bunch of others. So, that in real life event, digital experience, gives you something to get a little bit of social clout with when you post to TikTok or Insta. Those are, very standard ways that we're seeing brands today activate. So, let's talk. Actually, I know we're running a little bit low on time, so let's get to our lightning round question.
Oh,
I always
gosh.
like to end with a kind of big question. And I'll give you a minute to think about it, because the question, and I'll make it a little bit easier, right? Opinion preference based. What are you most excited about for the future? And as a kind of corollary, what do you think is the biggest brand opportunity? And are they aligned? And I will give my answer to that first. If you aren't paying attention to what Fortnite's doing, it's really, really interesting. They are following a Roblox model where they're allowing people to create their own maps, to create their own worlds. That means brands can enter. That means people can enter. It means you still have this core gameplay that attracts tens of millions of users a month, but now you've got opportunities to play within that universe, right? To use assets to create things in world that can cut across that space. And when you think about the metaverse and you think about unique and interesting ways to have users generate content, right? They're participating in unique ways. It's not just playing a game, to connect with others, to build brand experiences. That's a super interesting one. And, we don't play in that space directly at Gen City, but boy, is that becoming something really fascinating and is absolutely worth watching. So I'll take it over. Eric, I'm sending it to you second to give Lisa maximum time to provide thought. What do you got?
So for me, I think the most exciting thing about especially AI and XR is about hyper personalization, and it cuts across a bunch of verticals. So, for example, like education and training, what you can do with AI driven content and an XR experience for the medical industry, healthcare in general, engineering. A lot of simulations are just getting more and more realistic and immersive and personal. And that also, that personalization to me extends into the consumer experience as well. So B2C brands targeting users with just content that matches who they are, what their interests are, their demographic, in the same way that your Amazon feed knows what you've bought and recommends things. It's that on steroids. Imagine a totally immersive environment. You've got your glasses on that look like regular glasses in 5 or 10 years, let's say, and you're walking down the street and you're fed personal recommendations, or you see something a little bit different, an augmented version of the reality that feeds you things you might actually enjoy consuming.
Love it.
Personalization.
Lisa, bring us home.
Yeah, no, I the biggest opportunity for brands in my mind is AI. And I think every brand right now needs to be figuring out how they can help empower their customer using AI. We see every company, every client I'm working with is starting to build AI offerings. I work with a company who deals with media releases, and of course they're helping create an AI media release generator for their audiences. Canva has their Magic Studio. Every brand out there, and the exciting thing about it is you don't have to be a big brand anymore. The AI is being completely democratized. You can build your own private GPT on $20 a month. So guess what, brand, small business, there's no excuse for you to not do this, because you can. And I think the brand gift that every brand should be thinking about now is, how can I help my customer leverage the power of AI in a way that's going to be super valuable for them and help build affinity and value for whatever the product offering is that I used to offer. And I say used to because it's really going to be different, or else you're going to fail. I mean, so that, and I think that ties in very nicely to this idea of customization. My passion project are these 3D AI personas and AI characters that I've been building, which can translate to an AI companion. And I know I talk about this often, but the way we find information and the way we engage with the internet will radically change over the next 2 years, to the point where, good old fashioned search is done. We don't need to do that anymore. It's a skill that we've all honed over the last decade plus, but guess what? No longer. We can now have AI help us find exactly what we want in seconds, and it's so much better and so much quicker. And very soon, everybody will be there. So I'm excited about my AI companions and how they're going to impact our lives in ways we probably don't even know yet.
I love it.
That's
well, Lisa, that's awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. It is always a pleasure. For those of you guys in the audience joining us on LinkedIn or X or YouTube or elsewhere, we appreciate your time and attention. Don't forget to join Lisa's pub crawl, XR pub crawl, happening monthly. There's a few links posted up around, or you can reach out to any of us and we'll fire them off to you. It is absolutely worthwhile and worth it if you are into the XR space and want to check it out. Please do join her there.
Thank you. I'll also add that I do have my XR AI newsletter, and that is really kind of a place where I send out all of the on-demand recordings for the pub crawl. I talk about the pub crawl, so you can get the LinkedIn newsletter. It's just once a month, but it's jam-packed with lots of amazing news and opportunities to connect, whether it be the pub crawl or other ways. So subscribe to the newsletter to keep in touch with me. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very open, and if you're a fellow traveler, I want to hear from you. So connect with me. I would love to meet you. And I want to say thank you so much with Eric and Shaman, for being supporters of the pub crawl from day one, and having me on today. I love this. I could talk about this forever. It's a pleasure to talk with both of you. You're both so knowledgeable in this space. And I'd love to have you back on the pub crawl. Maybe we could do a sports edition.
Totally need to. Absolutely.
Right?
We will
My
do
students would love it. My students would love it. And we've never done a sports edition. So let's plan it.
100%. Right? We will.
Okay.
Awesome. Right on. Well, thank you once again to everybody out in the audience. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thanks much, everybody. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, guys.